The city of Blackwood was situated in an isolated valley, surrounded by dense, shadowy forests. Life there flowed calmly and serenely, but there was something unsettling about the atmosphere that surrounded the city. Generations of villagers grew up hearing stories about the surrounding forests, stories that were told in fearful whispers during the dark nights. The forests of Blackwood were known for hiding dark secrets, and fear of the unexplained disappearances that had occurred over the years had crept into the minds of the inhabitants. The place was so feared that most people avoided the forest at all costs, considering it forbidden territory. However, one night, something inexplicable happened. A dense and mysterious fog began to spread across the city, enveloping the houses and streets in an icy mist. The residents woke up with a start, with the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Strange and unsettling dreams plagued the nights of everyone in Blackwood. The visions seemed to call the inhabitants to the depths of the forbidden forests, as if an invisible and ancient force was urging them to venture where they had never dared before. Entire families, young and old, began to give in to the mysterious call. Dreams persuaded them, voices whispered in their ears as they slept. People woke up with their hearts racing, feeling an inexplicable need to follow the fog that moved towards the dark and cursed forests. Among those who couldn't resist the call was Emily, a fearless young woman who grew up in Blackwood. Since childhood, she has felt an inexplicable connection to the forest, as if the tall trees and dancing shadows whisper secrets just to her. That night, dreams whispered louder, calling her into the heart of the forbidden forests. Determined and courageous, Emily decided to follow the call, carrying with her a flashlight and her desire to unravel the mystery that had shrouded the forest for generations. She was willing to face the unknown, to discover why the forest had chosen her, even if it took her to dark places and terrifying revelations. With the fog thick around her, Emily took the first step into the unknown, entering the depths of the forest that stretched like a black abyss before her. The silence was oppressive, only broken by the sound of her footsteps echoing in the damp air. Every tree seemed to watch her. Every shadow seemed to take on a life of its own, and the feeling that something ancient was calling her only grew in intensity. Emily knew her journey was just beginning, and that daunting challenges awaited deep within the cursed forests of Blackwood. She was determined to discover the secret behind the call and face the terror that lurked within the tall, ominous trees. Mist and dreams guided her, and she was willing to discover the truth, even if it led her to face unimaginable horrors. As Emily walked deeper into the forest, the thick fog obscured the familiar paths, leaving her disoriented. The silence in those depths was suffocating, and the only soundtrack was the sound of his own footsteps echoing through the tall, dark tree. The flashlight Emily carried seemed to weaken with each step, as if the forest itself was draining its energy. However, her determination did not waver, and she continued moving forward into the unknown. She needed to understand why the forest had called her and what the secret was behind the curse that enveloped her. Hours passed, and the forest seemed endless. Every tree was a shadowy sentinel, and every shadow seemed to writhe and move, as if they were alive. Emily felt like she was being watched, that invisible eyes were peering at her from the depths of the darkness. Finally, she came to a strange and ominous clearing. In the center of the clearing, an ancient, gnarled tree stood, its roots seeming to writhe like serpents beneath the earth. Emily approached cautiously, feeling a dark presence around her. It was then that the tree spoke. Her voice was a slurred whisper, full of pain and malice. She revealed ancient secrets, telling how the forest had been cursed centuries ago by a dark ritual that trapped the souls of those who dared venture into its depths. Now, souls cried out for freedom. Emily listened intently, horrified by the tree's revelations. She learned that to break the curse and free the souls, she needed to find 3 magical objects lost deep in the forest. Each object was guarded by a dark guardian, terrible creatures who protected their treasure with fury and cunning. Determined to help the trapped souls and unravel the mystery surrounding the forest, Emily accepted the task imposed on her. By the ancient tree, she knew it would not be an easy journey, but the voice of the tree would guide and support her in her quest. So the young woman set out in search of the magical objects, aware that she would face terrifying challenges and supernatural creatures as she delved deeper into the dark depths of the forest. Every step she took brought her closer to the unknown and further away from the safety of her city. The nights became nightmares as Emily faced werewolves, vengeful spirits, and creatures that defied human understanding. With each encounter, she suffered injuries, but her determination did not waver. She knew she was close to unlocking the mystery of the forest, and the voice of the tree continued to guide her, whispering dark advice and encouragement into her ears. As Emily progressed in search of magical objects, the forest revealed its deepest secrets and unimaginable horrors, preparing her for the dark outcome that lay ahead. As Emily continued her search for magical objects deep in Blackwood Forest, the challenges and horrors she faced intensified. Each step took her deeper into a world of darkness and nightmares, where the creatures that inhabited those shadows were even more terrible than she could have imagined. One night, while crossing a fog-covered swamp, Emily found herself surrounded by hungry werewolves. Its yellow eyes glowed in the darkness, and its sharp claws gleamed in the dim light of the flashlight. The ensuing battle was fierce and desperate, with Emily using all her powers and courage to face the supernatural predators. She emerged from the fight with deep injuries, but managed to drive away the hungry werewolves. Vengeful spirits also crossed her path, whispering curses and promises of eternal torment. Emily had to use her wits and magic to escape their cunning antics, learning to respect the spirits of the forest as she progressed on her journey. Every magical object Emily found was protected by a dark guardian, creatures that did not belong to this world. She faced creatures that seemed straight out of nightmares, with empty eyes and distorted shapes. Each battle was a fight for her life, but Emily was determined to fulfill her mission and break the curse that trapped souls in the forest. The voice of the ancient tree guided her through trials, whispering advice and dark revelations into her mind. Emily began to understand the truth behind the curse. The forbidden ritual had been performed centuries ago by a group of sorcerers who sought power beyond human understanding. The ritual failed, leading to a curse that trapped the souls of the participants and turned the forest into a place of nightmares. As Emily collected the magical objects, she felt their power grow within her, making her stronger and more capable of facing the horrors the forest threw at her. But she also felt the growing pressure of her duty, the responsibility to free the souls crying out for help. However, as Emily progressed, she realized that the forest was not just a place of nightmares, but also a treasure trove of ancient knowledge. She learned to respect nature and the magic that flowed through it, and to understand that the curse was not just a prison, but also a form of protection against those who sought uncontrolled power. With the 3 magical objects in her possession, the voice of the ancient tree guided her to the place where she was to break the curse and free the imprisoned souls. But the dark outcome was yet to come, and Emily was about to face her greatest challenge yet, a confrontation that would determine the fate of Blackwood Forest and the souls crying there for redemption. Emily was now in possession of the 3 magical objects, each pulsing with an ancient and mysterious energy. The voice of the ancient tree guided her to the place where she was to break the curse that had trapped souls in Blackwood Forest for centuries. She came to a shadowy clearing, where the trees seemed to bow in reverence to her presence. In the center of the clearing, an ancient stone altar stood, covered in arcane symbols and mysterious inscriptions. It was there that Emily was supposed to perform the ritual to free the souls. As she prepared for the ritual, thick fog began to roil around her, as if the forest itself was reacting to her presence. Dark shadows moved and danced around him, as if they were watching and waiting. Emily began chanting the words of the ritual, using magical objects to channel her energy. The voice of the ancient tree whispered instructions in her mind, guiding her step by step. As the magical words filled the air, the mist began to condense, forming ethereal figures that slowly took shape. They were the souls of those who had been trapped in the curse centuries ago. Their faces were pale and their eyes expressed a mixture of gratitude and relief. Emily saw the suffering and agony they had endured for so long and was determined to free them. However, the liberation of souls would not be easy. As the ritual continued, the dark shadows surrounding the light began to stir and writhe. It was as if the forest was defending itself, resisting the breaking of the curse that imprisoned it. the shadows took shape, manifesting themselves as dark, menacing creatures. They were the dark guardians Emily had faced on her journey, now reunited to protect the curse they themselves helped create. An epic battle began in the light, with Emily facing the dark guardians with the courage and power she had acquired throughout her journey. Each guardian was a manifestation of the horrors of the forest, a reminder of the trials she had overcome. The battle was fierce and desperate, with Emily struggling to maintain her concentration on the ritual as she faced the dark creatures. She knew that the fate of the forest and the imprisoned souls was in her hands, and she was willing to sacrifice everything to fulfill her mission. Finally, with a heroic effort, Emily managed to defeat the Dark Guardians and complete the ritual. The magical energy released by the ritual swept away the dense fog and dispelled the shadows, as if the forest was finally freeing itself from its curse. The souls of those who had been imprisoned for so long were freed, rising into the sky like a brilliant light. Emily saw grateful smiles on the souls' faces as they disappeared, finally finding the peace they had been denied for centuries. The Blackwood Forest, now free of the curse, seemed to sigh with relief, and the trees returned to their tranquil state. Emily looked around, exhausted but satisfied that she had accomplished her mission. The voice of the ancient tree whispered words of thanks in his mind and then fell silent. The forest was no longer a forbidden and cursed place, but a place of beauty and mystery, a treasure trove of knowledge and magic that could now be explored without fear. Emily knew her journey had come to an end, and she said goodbye to the forest, leaving it behind. She returned to the town of Blackwood a hero, having broken the curse and brought peace to the imprisoned souls. The story of the young girl who defied the forest and faced its horrors has become a legend in Blackwood, a story told to children as a reminder that sometimes it takes courage and determination to face life's darkest and most unknown challenges. And Blackwood Forest, once cursed, now flourished with new life, holding secrets and mysteries that attracted adventurers and dreamers from everywhere.